Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking a really fascinating, honestly pretty provocative metaphysical lecture. It connects some completely wild, seemingly unrelated dots. We're talking political chaos, the rapid rise of the AI revolution, and a massive global spiritual shift. It's a super dense, totally unique take on exactly where humanity is heading. So let's just jump right in and see how this speaker views our world. The speaker kicks things off with a massive, unconventional claim right out of the gate. They ask, is the current chaos in society actually a planned awakening? Think about that for a second. The lecture is arguing that all the political and social dysfunction we see today, all the frustration and mismanagement, none of it is an accident, like literally none of it. Instead, they frame it as this deliberate structural mechanism. It's basically a giant alarm clock meant to wake us up from our complacency. So, to wrap our heads around this complex worldview, we'll break the lecture down into 5 key pillars: the purpose of societal chaos, critiquing religious cartels, the plight of educated elites, surviving the AI era, and finally, Korea as a global planner. Starting right off with part 1, the purpose of societal chaos. According to the lecture, when society is run by folks who just lack true capability, it inevitably leads to hardship for everyday people. But, and this is the kicker, this hardship isn't an accident. It's actually a 3-step awakening process. First, you get these deliberate societal pressures applied. Think things like rising taxes. If taxes go up just a tiny bit at a time, we just adjust and stay asleep, right? But if drastic measures hit, say laws are completely ignored or taxes are spiked significantly on at once, that creates intense pressure. And that pressure forces a complacent public to finally unite, stop being passive, and ultimately, it triggers the awakening of our collective consciousness. So in this view, chaos is literally the catalyst for unity. Which brings us to part 2, critiquing religious cartels. If society is intentionally chaotic, who's supposed to guide us through it? Well, the speaker offers a really harsh, totally unvarnished critique of modern religious institutions. They claim traditional spiritual leaders have completely failed us. Instead of giving true guidance, the claim here is that they operate basically like corrupt cartels. The source material describes this shockingly cynical scenario: religious leaders using luxury cars and chauffeurs specifically to target wealthy widows. They're aiming to extract billions of won from them, all while completely ignoring the spiritual needs of everyday people. Wild, right? Now, why have these institutions failed so badly? The philosophy points to a fundamental shift. We're moving out of what they call the era of blessings and straight into the era of truth. Back in the day, people were totally fine with basic rituals, blind faith, and just praying for good fortune. But the speaker insists that era is completely over. Today, as a modern, evolved society, we desperately need high-density spiritual education. We need deep, profound truth to build actual inner strength and resilience, and that is exactly what these old cartels just can't provide anymore. Moving on to part 3, the plights of educated elites. If traditional leaders are dropping the ball on providing this high-density truth, who picks up the slack? The lecture argues that the burden falls entirely on highly educated intellectuals, specifically a group the speaker calls the baby boomer PhDs. But check out this stark statistical claim. An astonishing 90% of these highly educated individuals currently have no real meaningful role in society. 90%! The speaker points out that this generation was essentially fed and supported by the sacrifices of the general public so they could reach those top tiers of education. Yet, despite that massive societal investment, the vast majority are just lost right now, doing nothing of real value. And when you have these massive intellects with nothing to do, the results are genuinely tragic. The lecture asserts that when these intellectuals can't find work that matches their high-level knowledge, they often get pushed into basic, low-level technical labor just to survive. Because their brains are hardwired for complex problem-solving, doing mundane tasks creates this profound sense of humiliation and deep depression. The speaker actually links this specific psychological despair among the educated class directly to the country's notoriously high suicide rates. It's truly an existential crisis of unused potential. This brings us right into part 4, surviving the AI era. This unused potential is basically a ticking time bomb, because the lecture draws a very firm line in the sand regarding our future. AI and robots are going to completely take over technical labor, and they won't just do the work, they'll do it thousands of times faster. AI is going to handle all the strict manual tasks, the complex calculations, even physical warfare. Humans simply cannot compete there, so human intellectuals have to completely pivot away from technical jobs. Their new role? Designing entirely new cultural concepts. For example, instead of relying on thousand-year-old texts for things like filial piety, human intellectuals need to completely redefine what true respect and duty actually look like for our modern complex age. And the speaker actually maps out a super specific timeline for this whole transition. The past was all about acquiring basic foundational knowledge. Our present? Well, it's defined by this painful AI transition and the societal chaos we've been talking about. But brace yourself for the near future. The lecture predicts a massive, fundamental shift in the Earth's energy will hit around the autumn of 2025. This energy shift is going to propel us out of basic science and, within just the next 3 to 5 years, push us into what the speaker calls a quantum era, a completely new phase where traditional boundaries of time and space are transcended and human thought operates on a totally new frequency.
Finally, Part 5, Korea as a Global Planner.
To survive this massive global shift, humanity is going to need serious direction. The speaker argues that the world is this deeply interconnected system where every single region has been intentionally grown for a very specific purpose. The USA, China, and Japan, they are destined to execute specific, powerful assigned roles. Europe, Russia, and the Arab world operate in their own tailored regional functions. But the ultimate destiny for South Korea, according to this worldview, is to act as the overarching global planner, basically the intellectual hub that designs the cultural, social, and spiritual blueprints for the rest of the world to follow.
But get this global planning isn't supposed to happen in your standard corporate boardrooms. No, the lecture brings in a deeply geographic and spiritual element here, claiming that sacred sites in Korea, specifically Gyeongsan Mountain, have a hidden purpose. It asserts that this mountain isn't just a spot for simple prayers or basic rituals. Instead, it's a designated, spiritually charged launching pad. It's a place reserved specifically for these elite planners and spiritual leaders to gather, harness the energy, and literally broadcast paradigm-shifting truths out to the entire world.
So how on earth does this grand vision become reality? Well, the lecture outlines a 3-step solution for these lost elites we've been talking about. Step 1, the disconnected, unemployed baby boomer PhDs actually have to gather together. Step 2, they need to completely stop seeking basic, low-level technical jobs and instead start tackling massive, unresolved global issues. The primary example the speaker gives is figuring out the spiritual and social blueprint for Korean unification. And step 3, by solving these huge problems, they finally earn global respect and fulfill their destiny as the paradigm planners for humanity.
And that brings us to one final, really profound question from this fascinating lecture. As AI takes over the mechanical, calculative, and technical world, entirely freeing us from traditional labor, are we prepared to awaken? Are we ready to stop fighting for the jobs of the past and instead step up to become the spiritual and intellectual architects of humanity's next era? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you to ponder exactly that.